Deep in the frozen wilderness of the Ural Mountains, a chilling mystery has remained unsolved for over 60 years. 9 hikers set out on an adventurous journey and vanished without a trace. Their tent was found torn open from the inside, their bodies scattered across the snow, some with terrifying injuries that defy explanation. What dark force drove them barefoot into a deadly blizzard? What secrets does the infamous Dyatlov Pass still hide beneath the ice and snow? Tonight, we uncover the truth behind one of the most haunting real-life horror stories ever recorded. Welcome to Graveyard Stories, your home for true horror stories, paranormal encounters, and creepy tales that will keep you up at night. If you're watching right now, drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a terrifying journey into the unknown. Let's begin. In late January 1959, a group of 9 young, eager hikers gathered in the small city of Sverdlovsk in the Soviet Union. These were no ordinary adventurers. Each was an experienced skier, mountaineer, and outdoorsman, bonded by their love of challenge and the wild. Leading the group was Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old student at the Ural Polytechnic Institute, known for his leadership skills and calm demeanor. The team's plan was ambitious: to cross the northern part of the Ural Mountains, a remote and treacherous region known for bitter cold and unpredictable weather. Their goal was to reach Otorten Mountain, about 10 kilometers northwest of their planned route, before winter's harshest grip fully set in. This expedition was meant to be a test of their skill, endurance, and teamwork. Before setting off, the hikers carefully prepared for the journey. They packed heavy woolen clothing, winter gear, tents, and enough supplies to last several weeks. Letters and postcards sent to family and friends painted a picture of excitement and optimism. They spoke of crisp mountain air, breathtaking views, and the thrill of adventure. Their spirits were high, their camaraderie strong. None of them could have foreseen that this trip would end in one of the most baffling tragedies in mountaineering history. What started as a hopeful expedition soon turned into a chilling nightmare. Over the coming days, the group would face not only the brutal forces of nature, but something far more mysterious and terrifying. Something that would leave investigators puzzled for decades. Theirs was a journey that tested more than just their physical strength. It would challenge the very limits of human endurance and unravel a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. After a brief farewell to their families and friends, the 9 hikers began their journey into the frozen wilderness of the northern Ural Mountains. The air was biting cold, the kind that numbs your face and seeps through the thickest layers of clothing. Temperatures routinely plunged below -30 degrees Celsius, a relentless and unforgiving chill that would test even the hardiest souls. The group's route led them away from civilization and into vast stretches of snow-covered forests, frozen rivers, and rugged mountain slopes. The harsh landscape was as beautiful as it was dangerous. Towering pine trees stood silent under heavy snow, and the sky often hung gray and heavy, promising blizzards and fierce winds. Yet the hikers pressed on, their spirits undaunted by the brutal elements. Their progress was steady at first. Radio contact confirmed their route was going as planned, and the hikers exchanged messages filled with confidence and excitement. But as the days wore on, the weather began to shift. Winds grew stronger, visibility dropped, and fresh snow blanketed the terrain, making travel more treacherous. The biting cold intensified, and the isolation grew deeper. Despite the worsening conditions, The group continued, yet behind their bravery lay growing concern. Friends and family waited anxiously for news, but as days turned into weeks without contact, worry escalated. The university they attended alerted authorities, and a search party was formed. Unaware of the looming danger, the hikers faced the mountain's unforgiving power. What awaited them on the slopes was beyond any normal hazard, a darkness that would shatter their resolve and send them fleeing into a night of terror. On the cold afternoon of February 26th, weeks after the hikers had last been seen, search teams finally found a disturbing clue that would deepen the mystery surrounding their disappearance. The group's tent was located on the slope of a remote mountain known ominously by the indigenous Mansi people as Kholat Shakal, or Dead Mountain. It sat half-buried under thick snow, its bright orange fabric torn and flapping in the icy wind. But the state of the tent was unlike anything the rescuers had expected. Instead of being carefully packed up or folded for an emergency, the tent was cut open from the inside, as if the hikers had been desperate to escape something terrifying. The tent's metal poles were broken, scattered across the snow, and many of the hikers' belongings were left behind. Even more alarming, their shoes and warm clothes were missing. It appeared that the group had fled into the freezing night, barefoot and barely dressed, into temperatures that would soon plunge well below -30 degrees Celsius. No footprints or tracks led from the tent for a long distance, adding to the eerie confusion. How had they escaped so quickly, and where had they gone? The rescuers felt a chill beyond the cold as they realized the hikers' panic had been so sudden and intense that they had abandoned their survival gear in a race to get away. The wilderness around the tent was silent, frozen, but something in the air felt heavy and foreboding. What had forced this skilled group of adventurers to flee so recklessly? As the rescuers began their search for the missing hikers, they had no idea the horrors that awaited them just beyond the snow-covered trees. Just a few days after discovering the torn tent, the search teams made a grim and haunting discovery. The first two bodies. They were found near a small cedar tree, about 500 meters from the tent, lying side by side in the snow. The bitter cold had frozen them in place, their pale faces turned upward toward the gray winter sky. What struck the rescuers most was how the two men were dressed, shoeless, wearing only their underwear and thin clothes, completely unprepared for the brutal temperatures that could easily kill in minutes. Medical examiners determined they had died of hypothermia, the deadly loss of body heat that the freezing Siberian night demanded. But there was something deeply unsettling about their expressions. Eyewitnesses described their faces as strangely peaceful, almost as if they had surrendered quietly to the cold rather than struggling desperately. This discovery deepened the mystery and raised terrifying questions. Why had these experienced hikers left the safety of the tent so suddenly? Why had they run barefoot into a freezing night, knowing the dangers? The silence of the forest seemed to grow heavier, as if mourning the lost souls. For the searchers, the image of the two bodies lying abandoned in the snow was a grim warning. Something terrible had forced this group from their camp. But what? Despite the cold and the growing fear, the search continued. The rescuers still hoped to find survivors, unaware of how much darker the truth would soon become. As the search pressed on, rescuers found the remaining members of the group scattered across the snowy landscape, some buried beneath heavy layers of snow and ice. Over the course of several weeks, 7 more bodies were recovered, each discovery adding layers of mystery and dread to the tragic story. Among the deceased was Igor Dyatlov himself, the expedition's leader. Their frozen forms told a haunting tale of suffering and confusion. While 5 of the hikers appeared to have died of hypothermia like the first 2, the last 2 presented injuries that would baffle and horrify the medical examiners. One victim had a fractured skull, while another suffered severe chest fractures, injuries so severe they were likened to those from a high-impact car crash. Yet oddly, no external wounds or bruising were visible on the skin. It was as if some invisible force had crushed their bodies from within. Adding to the mystery, some of the bodies were found wearing clothes that tested positive for unusual levels of radiation. This inexplicable detail led to even stranger theories and questions about what the hikers had encountered. Where had the hikers fled to that night? And what terrifying force had caused such brutal injuries? The harsh winter environment could explain the deaths from hypothermia, but it could not explain the broken bones or the missing body parts discovered on some victims. The further the investigation went, the more puzzling the case became. Rescuers and investigators alike were left grappling with facts that defied logic, a nightmare that seemed part natural disaster, part something far more sinister. As the cold wind howled through the empty forest, the question lingered. What really happened to these 9 young hikers on that frozen mountain slope? When the medical examiners began their full investigation, the case took a darker, more disturbing turn. Some of the hikers' injuries were unlike anything typically seen in accidents or natural disasters. One victim's tongue was missing, completely gone, with no clear explanation. His eyes were also absent, as if they had been removed with surgical precision. The horror of this detail sent a chill through the investigators, raising fears of something more than just the cold claiming these lives. Another hiker had severe internal injuries, broken ribs, and a fractured skull. Yet, there were no external bruises or marks that would suggest a struggle or impact with a hard object. It was as though an invisible force had crushed their bodies with incredible power. Adding to the strangeness, some of the hikers' clothing was found to be radioactive. This fact baffled scientists and fueled rumors of secret military experiments taking place nearby. Experiments that might have unleashed deadly consequences. Despite exhaustive investigations, no definitive cause could explain these injuries. The hikers' wounds were not consistent with an avalanche or an animal attack, and no evidence of foul play was ever found. These bizarre findings have inspired countless theories, from extraterrestrial encounters to secret weapons tests, but none have been proven. For those who study the case, the injuries suggest something terrifying and inexplicable, something that reached beyond the natural world and left these hikers victims of a force they could neither see nor understand. As the details of the Dyatlov Pass incident emerged, a flood of theories and speculations took hold, each attempting to explain the inexplicable horrors that befell the 9 hikers. One of the earliest and most widely accepted explanations was that an avalanche forced the group to flee their tent in a panic. The sudden rush of snow and ice, the terrifying roar, could explain why they cut their way out and ran barefoot into the freezing night. But experts soon found problems with this theory. The slope where the tent stood was not steep enough to produce a fatal avalanche, and there was no evidence of large snow deposits near the campsite. Another theory suggested a natural but unusual atmospheric phenomenon called a Kármán vortex street, powerful wind patterns that produce low-frequency sounds. These sounds can cause extreme panic and disorientation in humans, leading to irrational behavior. Could such eerie, invisible forces have driven the hikers into terror? It's possible, but this theory cannot explain the severe injuries or the missing body parts. More sensational ideas include attacks by a wild animal or even the legendary Yeti, but there were no signs of animal tracks or struggle to support this. Then, there are conspiracy theories, whispers of secret military tests involving experimental weapons or radioactive materials. Some speculate that the hikers stumbled upon a covert operation and were silenced to keep secrets safe. The radiation found on some clothing adds a chilling note to these claims, though no official proof has emerged. Other more paranormal theories suggest encounters with extraterrestrials or malevolent spirits haunting the mountain. Despite decades of study, none of these explanations fully account for every detail. The broken bones without bruises, the missing eyes and tongues, the mysterious radiation. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains a haunting enigma, a chilling puzzle with pieces that refuse to fit. The Dyatlov Pass incident has long been shrouded in secrecy and speculation, much of it fueled by the Soviet government's handling of the case. For decades, official reports were sparse, contradictory, and often vague, leaving investigators and the public frustrated by unanswered questions. Initially, Soviet authorities ruled the cause of death as a compelling natural force, a phrase that seemed deliberately vague and unsatisfying. The real story appeared to be buried beneath layers of silence and misinformation. In the years following the tragedy, the area surrounding the Dyatlov Pass was used for military exercises and weapons testing, including secret experiments involving radioactive materials. This fueled rumors that the hikers might have stumbled onto a restricted zone and become victims of a government cover-up. Witnesses in nearby villages reported seeing strange glowing lights in the sky on the night of the hikers' disappearance. Some claimed to have heard loud booms or explosions, though these reports were never officially confirmed. Could these phenomena be linked to covert military activities, or were they natural events misinterpreted in the tension following the tragedy? Declassified documents have since revealed some details of the investigation, but leave many questions unresolved. Certain files remain classified, fueling suspicions that the government withheld information to protect state secrets. The families of the hikers were also pressured to remain silent, adding a personal tragedy to the official silence. This veil of secrecy has kept the mystery alive and intensified public fascination. Was the Dyatlov Pass incident simply a tragic accident compounded by harsh weather, or was it the result of human interference and intentional obfuscation? No one knows for sure, but the unanswered questions haunt the slopes of Dead Mountain to this day. More than 6 decades have passed since the tragic events at Dyatlov Pass, yet the mystery continues to grip the imagination of people around the world. What started as a daring adventure ended in a chilling enigma that refuses to fade with time. Every year, hikers and investigators make the journey to the remote mountain slope where the 9 young explorers lost their lives. They come seeking answers, paying respects, and trying to piece together the fragments of that cold, dark night. But the mountain remains silent, guarding its secrets beneath the endless snow and biting wind. The Dyatlov Pass incident is more than a case file or a news story. It is a reminder of how nature can be both beautiful and merciless, and how sometimes the human mind struggles to comprehend the unknown. The hikers were skilled, prepared, and brave, yet they were overwhelmed by forces that remain unexplained. This tragedy has inspired books, documentaries, and countless theories, but the truth still hides behind layers of frozen silence. What exactly happened on that night? What invisible terror drove these young adventurers from their tents into the deadly cold? And what caused the unexplainable injuries that baffled doctors and investigators. For many, the answers are less important than the story itself, a haunting tale of courage, mystery, and the terrifying power of the unknown. As you listen to this story tonight, remember the faces of those hikers who vanished into the white wilderness, never to return. Their legacy lives on, a ghostly echo in the mountains and a warning to those who dare to wander too far into the dark. Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of the greatest true horror mysteries ever told. If you felt the chill tonight, please subscribe for more terrifying true stories. And don't forget to share where you're watching from in the comments. Stay safe and beware the whispers.